Hey, would you like to check out some cool animal adaptations?
Sure.
So we've actually learned a lot from animals and looking at the different adaptations that they have to respond to challenges that they have in their ocean environment. And there's even some of what we can look at that they've kind of developed that can help us solve problems in our own life. Sardines are a pretty good example. So if you look at these guys, this is about the size they'd be in real life. And a fish this small out in the ocean is going to have a couple problems. One, when you're that small, it's kind of difficult to swim against the currents that are out there. And two, there's going to be a lot of mouths out there that are bigger than you, so lots of potential predators. But that's why they actually school together. So when sardines are in a school, if you're a predator, it's really hard to pick out just one to attack. So it kind of provides them a bit of protection from predators. And then also it allows them to be more energy efficient because they can draft on each other, and then that allows them better progress against currents. So we've kind of realized in our own communities that we also need to be more efficient in our use of fossil fuel. So that's why our communities are now working together, like the sardines, to support alternative transportation programs and also to make a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And the reason we're doing that is because we've realized that when we burn fossil fuels, things like coal, oil, and natural gas, we're releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This carbon dioxide is building up in our atmosphere and acting kind of like a heat-trapping blanket. So it's warming our planet, and then that's changing our climate. And we're realizing now that these climate changes are impacting our communities. So we're all working together to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and be more efficient in our use of energy. Of course, energy efficiency is certainly not a novel concept, even though we might like to take credit for inventing it. It's something that animals have been doing for millennia. And for them, it's actually really important. Being efficient in how you use energy is a matter of survival, so they're really good at it. And there's actually some surprising examples of animals that are more energy efficient than we might think. And the boxfish is a great one. So if you look at this animal, you know, there's some animals that we think of as being kind of traditionally energy efficient in their shapes, right? So a tuna, if you look at them, they're really speedy out there in the ocean. They have really streamlined shapes. Same thing with the shark, very sleek looking. These guys can get up to pretty good speeds when they're fighting prey too. But if you look at a boxfish, you wouldn't think it would be very speedy. Are we ready? Let's behold the awesome speed and power of the boxfish. There it goes. So it doesn't look like much, but as it turns out, when you get this guy in a wind tunnel, the shape ends up being really efficient. And so they've actually adapted some of the curves of a boxfish into bodies for cars. And they found that that allows them to be more energy efficient. And, you know, scientists initially were kind of laughing at the idea of putting this guy in a wind tunnel because he didn't look like much, but nature kind of knew what it was doing. And these shapes, the curves that he has, are actually designed for currents. And that's pretty similar to when you're traveling at high speeds in a vehicle. So now that we have some of these more efficient styles for cars, that's something that our communities can get together and do, is kind of support getting more of those energy efficient cars out on the roads. More boxfish mobiles, in other words. So another pretty cool innovation that we've kind of learned from animals comes from the kingfisher. So these are birds that make their living by diving into the water and catching fish. So to do that, they need a really streamlined beak. Their beak is so streamlined, they don't even make a splash when they hit the water, and that is part of how they are able to catch fish. So what researchers have done is actually looked at the shape of this beak, and they've actually applied that shape to a cap for bullet trains in Japan. And this has allowed them to travel even faster with less wind resistance, so using less energy then as a result. And some of the reasons why that was important is the bullet trains in Japan, they're traveling at such high speeds that when they would enter or exit tunnels, they were actually creating a sonic boom, essentially, because of all the wind resistance that they were facing. And that would rattle all of the nearby apartment buildings, so the neighbors were not stoked. So the researcher that was kind of tasked with solving this problem was a birder. And so he kind of thought about kingfishers and how they have that such a streamlined beak that they don't even make a splash. And that kind of gave him that idea. So now that there's been all these really cool advances with high-speed rail, that's a really cool thing that we can advocate for in our communities. So that's another way that we can reduce our use of fossil fuels, is more efficient public transit. Now, some of these innovations that we've kind of stolen from nature are further along in their implementation than others. So this is kind of a cool cutting edge one that we're kind of just starting to develop that we've learned from sharks. So we talked about how some animals have, you know, kind of traditionally efficient shapes to them, and a shark definitely fits that bill, kind of a really streamlined shape. But they also have another trick up their sleeve that helps out with their energy efficiency. So a lot of animals will accumulate a layer of what we call biofouling. So it could be algae, or like on ships it happens too, and we'll get a lot of barnacles. And this accumulation can really create a lot of drag and also just a lot of weight, so it can really slow you down. And make you use more energy. But you never see these kinds of coatings on sharks, never see them on their skin. And scientists wondered why. So they took a closer look at shark skin and they found out that that's where the secret is. Sharks actually have all these kind of teeth-like structures, we call them dermal denticles on their skin, that are really hard for fouling to attach to. So now researchers are working to make a coating based on this structure that you could put on boat hulls to prevent that accumulation of biofouling and allow the ships to be more energy efficient and go farther and faster with less fuel. So that's another really cool thing. And as some of these new products are coming to the market, we can kind of be letting businesses, letting our elected officials know that we want to incentivize the adoption of some of these really cool innovations. So that's something we can do in our communities. And then last but not least, this is another kind of newer design. So scientists were looking at the tails of dolphins, because if you look at a dolphin, the size of a dolphin is actually pretty big compared to the size of their tail, right? But they're able to generate a lot of really good forward momentum with that tail. And our designs for boat propellers have remained essentially unchanged since they were invented. So scientists were curious to know if they were able to develop a design for a propeller that would mimic that motion of a dolphin tail and to see if it would be more efficient. So they were able to come up with a design that they thought would work well, and then they started applying it to some barges, and they found out that lo and behold, it was really energy efficient. So this is something you won't necessarily see on a lot of boats yet. It's a pretty new invention, but it's really promising because transporting and especially shipping of things like food, things like, goods that we use in our everyday lives is one of the sectors of our economy that uses a fair amount of energy. So any innovations in energy efficiency that we can promote for shipping is going to be great for our communities. So there's lots of really cool things that we've learned from the ocean that can help us to solve some of our own challenges, and we can work together to make it happen.